Ladies and gentlemen, could you start getting back to your seats now? Phones on silent. This is a very important session for us, as you know. We're very privileged to have the Governor General address us. Excellency, the Right Honorable David Johnston, Governor General of Canada. Please, sir. Thank you. It's a great privilege for our chamber to have with us today His Excellency the Right Honorable David Johnston, Governor General of Canada. So your presence marks a milestone in our chamber's journey of the 2 decades, and with your insights and with your knowledge that we hope you will share with us today, we hope that that will build a foundation for our next 20 years journey as well. Without further ado, I will ask our Chamber's National President, Mr. Rontu Basu, to formally welcome you and take this from here. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome His Excellency David Johnston to the ICBC National Convention and the Valedictory session. It is indeed a unique honor in the 20th year of its existence of the Chamber to have the Governor General grace this occasion. We also welcome the members of the delegation of the Governor General, other visitors from Canada, members and friends of ICBC. The Governor General is known for his dedication to learning, innovation, and promotion of education and research, and his current visit is centered on these themes, which has also been the focal point of our day-long deliberations today. During the day, we've had eminent government and industry leaders discuss opportunities for innovative partnerships between India and Canada in the areas of information and communication technology, financial services, education, and skills development. We expect that some of these discussions would translate into actual business. The Indo-Canadian Business Chamber is the only bilateral organization based in India dedicated to the promotion of economic relations between the two countries. The Chamber has played a key role in promoting and strengthening the Canada-India business relationship, and through its past conventions and business meetings has been at the forefront of pushing 4 critical agenda items in Indo-Canada relations, namely infrastructure, education, food security, and energy security. The last 2, namely food security and energy security, make Canada a country deeply responsive to the Indian agenda. The frequency of visits over the last 3 years involving ministers, members of parliament, academic and trade delegations, and now the Honorable Governor General's visit reflects the importance of the Canada-India relationship. So the momentum is growing in the Indo-Canada relationship, and if I can characterize the state of play through a quote by a famous Canadian hockey legend, Wayne Gretzky, we are skating to where the puck is going to be and not where it has been. Since we are talking hockey, congratulations to Canada for winning the 2 most coveted goals in Sochi in the women's and men's hockey event. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the Canadian High Commission and the Consulate General in Mumbai for working closely with ICBC for this afternoon session and for the cooperation over the years. I now request Mr. Peter Sutherland, CEO of the Canada-India Business Council, to provide his overview on being part of the Governor General's official delegation during the past week and introduce the Governor General. And many thanks again to His Excellency David Johnston for gracing our convention today. Peter.
Your Excellency, Minister, Parliamentary Secretary, Members of Parliament, fellow delegates, and friends in India. The first thing I want to say is congratulations to the Indo-Canadian Business Chamber. When I was here as the High Commissioner more than a decade ago, seems a long time ago, It was an organization that had been in existence for some time, but was not nearly as widespread nor as effective as the organization today. And I think that's a tribute to people like Rantu, Nadira, Apurva, and everyone else. Congratulations. For the members of the delegation from Canada, the ICBC is represented in Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and Ahmedabad, and growing. I think Kolkata is next on the list, as I understand it. So they're becoming truly a national organization. And for us, the Canada-India Business Council, they're a very strong partner. They've helped in the past, and we're looking forward to continuing this collaboration as we go forward into the future. So let me say a few things about, at least from my perspective, this delegation that I've been privileged to be part of. First of all, as you know, the focus has been education, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And I don't think that's serendipitous. If you think of the three of them, they go together, and I think they go together sequentially. Education is all about teaching skills, but more importantly, opening minds and developing curiosity. Innovation is about seeing problems or opportunities and finding solutions or way to deal with those problems or exploit those opportunities. And entrepreneurship is finding a way to monetize those opportunities and create jobs and wealth for the family and society as a whole. So the three go together, and they go together sequentially. So it seems to me that this delegation has been well focused. And when I look back over what we've been accomplished over the past week, first thing to say, it's been busy. Very busy, long days, but I think very effective days, very productive days. Just to talk about some of the highlights that come to mind for me, on the education side, of course, we had the signing of an agreement between the National Skills Development Council of India and the Association of Canadian Community Colleges, which opens the door or creates a framework within which there are going to be a lot of individual negotiations. There were also discussions at the IIT in Mumbai. There was a session on education going forward in India at Wilson College here in Mumbai, and further discussions across the way on education and skill building. CIE, for example, hosted an event in Bangalore, which was a very interesting discussion where we talked about specific areas for collaboration. If you look to the second area, the area of innovation, of course, the capstone was the signing of another agreement. We had the Grand Challenges Canada, together with the Department of Biotechnology, sign an agreement. But beyond that, there were discussions across the board on innovation. And again, one of the events that stood out for me was an event, fittingly enough, at Emphasis in Bangalore, where we talked about the building or how you build ecosystems that can encourage innovation to flourish. Another, I thought, interesting discussion was at the University of Delhi, in Delhi, where we talked about that essential question, is it nature or nurture that creates innovators? I don't know if we got an answer to that. I think the answer probably is a little bit of both, but the point is it was a very interesting discussion. If we turn to entrepreneurship, again, for me, the highlight was the event we had here in Mumbai with the Bombay Stock Exchange, Ryerson, and Simon Fraser University launching their incubator. And not only did we have the launch and the chance to ring the gong several times, as a matter of fact, to open the stock exchange, but then we had a chance to meet some very young innovators who have built some startup companies, and essentially made a pitch to our delegation to look for some support. Now, I wasn't privy to the follow-on discussions, but I know for one that Peter van der Velden had some discussions with one of the groups, and probably some others as well. So altogether then, there's been a very productive week in terms of actual agreements signed, and in the latter case, probably the most notable was the audio-visual co-production agreement. I know how important that is because I was working in that when I was here 13 years ago. So sometimes they take a long time to come to fruition, but when they do, they're worth waiting for. But during the course of the week, when I was going through all of these various activities, the light switched on for me, or a light switched on for me. Not for the first time, but this is an important sort of recognition for me. I started to realize why innovation is so important to Canada, why building these bridges to create opportunities for joint research, innovation, and entrepreneurship is so important. If you look at Canada, we're a country of 35 million people, but we have I think it's about the 10th largest economy in the world, $1.7 trillion. Now, why is that? It's because trade, exports and imports, represents about 70% of our GDP, of our economy. which says that we're a very open economy. We're looking for opportunities to trade with the world. And our ability to trade with the world has enabled us to create a living standard that is far beyond what we could accomplish looking insular to a population of 35 million. So that ability to trade, to reach out, to promote relationships with the rest of the world has been fundamental to our success. If you look ahead to the digital economy, the same thing applies. Years from now, it's already started. To be competitive in the world, you've got to be at the head of the wave, or the front of the wave, with respect to education, innovation, and entrepreneurship. We've got to be ambitious as we were with the trade agenda, into building those bridges and opening ourselves up. If we do, we'll continue to maintain our standard of living and move it forward. If we don't, we'll fall further and further behind. So that bridge building, first of all, that focus on those three areas, then building the bridges with countries like India, where they invented frugal innovation, where the whole sort of spirit of the country is jugaad, resourcefulness, making things happen, finding answers. This is a natural partner for Canada. So that's why I think this particular mission is so important and has been so timely for Canada and India. Now let me say the most important part of my few words is that we have been very fortunate to be led by His Excellency David Johnson, because he's a man who embodies all of the features or focuses of our mission. He's certainly, you've all got a copy of his bio, so I don't have to elaborate on it, but he's an educator, as you know. He was the Dean of Law, University of Western Ontario, the Principal of McGill University, and the President of Waterloo University, among other things. He's also been an innovator. He was one of the people, for example, that saw the utility of creating these co-op arrangements at the University of Waterloo and spreading them beyond just engineering faculties, but across the board. He's been a big proponent, still today, of getting that movement back and forth for young people, Canadian people coming into Canada, but equally important, Canadians going outside of Canada. And as an entrepreneur, what he sees is the importance, I think, of bringing together education, innovation, and commercialization so that you can create a more caring, a smarter, and a more inclusive society. So you put all those things together, you've got a very impressive individual and a great Governor General for Canada. But two things that are equally or especially important for Canadians. In addition to everything I've said, His Excellency is a hockey player. More importantly, he's a very good hockey player. So good that he proved his mettle in the United States, which is always important for a Canadian, proved his mettle in the United States by being twice selected to the American All-Star hockey team. So that's quite an accomplishment. And secondly, as I hope you'll find out in a moment, he's a wonderful raconteur. He can tell stories, meaningful stories, to make points that people always remember. So without further ado, let me call upon Grandpa Book to talk to us.
Very much. I've been instructed that I'm supposed to give a short, warm, and inspiring message, and whenever I hear those three words, my knees shudder again, because I was in my first year as principal of McGill University, and we had the first of many budget cuts, and we put a group together to come up with some brilliant ideas as to how we could save money. And in that year, Quebec Hydro, the electricity supplier, had substantial capital discounts and an operating break for those institutions that would move from non-electrical appliances to electrical ones. So with a stroke of the pen, we removed all of the paper hand-drying machines in the washrooms of the university and replaced them with electrical hand-drying machines, thereby diminishing the forest industry of Quebec, but nevertheless playing into this competitive advantage. And to my great delight, this brilliant idea was executed almost immediately, and I went out on an inspection tour in the engineering building. And into the men's washroom I went, and sure enough, there was an electrical hand-drying machine up on the wall, fresh, new, white, but already some graffiti had been inscribed on it just above the presser button and said, "Press this button for a short, warm, and inspiring message from your principal." And I turned over this way, and lo and behold, there was another machine on the other side of the wall, equally new, already some graffiti, and it read, "Poussez ce bouton pour un message court, chaleureux et inspirant de votre recteur. Merci." And I thought, isn't this wonderful? The engineers at McGill not only are bilingual, but they're polite. Merci. This is a a wonderful nostalgic return for me. I have had a love affair with this country for a long time. When I finished my first degree, I had the good fortune to have a Rotary traveling fellowship that took me anywhere in the world for graduate studies, and I ended up going to England because I had a particular program in law that I wanted to pursue there. But on my top three choices was Madras Christian College, so I might well have had a different turn of direction at that point. Another part of that journey and that love affair was in this hotel and just the gateway to India, where Ravi Sitapathy and I began an important journey. Ravi is a wonderful Indo-Canadian. Like 1.2 million, or 1 in 30 of our population have Indian heritage. And Ravi was co-chairing the Canada-India Business Council, and I was then president of the University of Waterloo, and we were commissioned by our Ministry of Industry to do a study, an inventory of all of the science and technology collaborations and agreements between Canadian institutions and Indian institutions. And we traveled in this country to do it. And to our delight, there were many more than we had realized there were, and they were more penetrating than we realized they were. And that was one ingredient that then led to a science and technology Canada-India agreement and a science and technology committee. And I had the great pleasure of serving on that committee for a few years as this agreement was getting underway. So it's wonderful to be back. I think this is my fourth trip in the last 7 or 8 years, and there will be many more. I'll come back with the children, grandchildren. There are 10 grandchildren, and they call me Grandpa Buck Peter. Thank you. Nous sommes enchantés d'être à Mumbai, la capitale commerciale de l'Inde, et d'avoir la chance de vous rencontrer en personne. En tant que chef d'entreprise, vous savez fort bien que rien ne remplace les échanges et les rencontres en personne. Our delegate, all of us, are simply delighted to be here in Mumbai, India's commercial capital, and have the opportunity to meet face-to-face. As business leaders, you understand there is no substitute for meeting and getting to know one another face-to-face and building those trust relationships. And I'm very fond of quoting our now governor of the Bank of England. We've exported him for 5 years only, then he's back, former governor of Bank of Canada, Mark Carney, who says, trust comes in on foot and goes out in a Ferrari. And trust lies at the base of these relationships. And so that's why we're here in Mumbai, and that's why we're here on this state visit to India, and that's why, Peter, as you so have eloquently described the theme of our mission, education, innovation, entrepreneurship, and you've given simply a superb summary of some of the highlights of the visit for all of us and how they reinforce that particular narrative, which is such an appropriate one for the Canada-India relationship. And what a visit has been. My heavens, 8 days now, 9 days, a whirlwind, a kaleidoscope of great opportunities, great memories, great sense of excitement in what we have ahead of us. The best is yet to come. I've only been able to see a fraction of this country, but India's remarkable dynamism and the potential is everywhere in evidence, beginning, of course, with frugal innovation, but so much else in this complex country, which is a miracle in the sense that no one believed back in 1947 democracy could work in such a large and complex population, and you've made it work. And that, of course, is one of the great lessons for the world at large. At first glance, Canada and India may look like a total study in contrast, but we have important things in common. I'd mentioned one of them, the shared traditions of parliamentary democracy. Another is a firm commitment to pluralism. We are two societies that have learned how to work with difference, have realized how essential it is to work with difference, and I think have made out of that working with difference and the appreciation of pluralism a wonderful competitive advantage. We can see things from several different angles, and as Saint-Exupéry said in Le Petit Prince, I am different from you, but because I am different, I do not diminish you, I enrich you. More than 1 million, it's almost 1.2 million Canadians trace their roots to India. That's 1 in 30 Canadians, 500,000 from Punjab and 300,000 to Gujarat. And I've got to tell you, they make a wonderful contribution to our society. We've had distinguished examples out of this trip. Deepak Oberoi right here is the Parliamentary Secretary of Foreign Affairs. Deepak has, I think he has put more miles on his frame than any Canadian ever in the last 7 or 8 years as parliamentary secretary, quite more. And our Minister of Sport, Bal Gosal, we give Bal credit for all of the gold medals that Canada has won. Bal, you've done brilliantly, and we're gearing up now for the next Summer Olympics, and I hope that our tradition will continue and you will continue to lead us to great gold medal competition. Being members of India's only Canada-focused business group, you, of all people, know how much we do share in common, as well as what makes us unique and therefore complementary. So let me thank all of you for what you do for Canada and for the relationship between our two countries. And if you remember nothing of what I say today, please remember 2 words, or 3 words perhaps: thank you and merci. Ultimately, the success of our business, our academic and cultural partnerships hinge upon the quality of ties between individual Canadians and Indians, and we come back to that important concept of trust. Thanks to our existing deep and multifaceted relationship, we've great potential to strengthen and broaden our ties, and as leaders within the private sector, you have a pivotal role to play in advancing mutually beneficial commercial linkages. The theme of this year's convention, again, innovation, is one that's very close to my heart. In fact, when I was installed in this job a little over 3 years ago, the title of my installation address was "A Smart and Caring Nation, a Call to Service." And each of those adjectives is important. They reinforce one another. And there are 3 pillars to it. One was family and children. The second was learning and innovation, and they go hand in hand. And the third was philanthropy and volunteerism. Canadian innovations are world-renowned: the telephone, insulin, IMAX movie technology, the BlackBerry which came out of the university of which I was vice chancellor until 3 years ago. Peter mentioned the co-op program at the University of Waterloo. We began with an engineering school, and from the very beginning we had 2 rather unusual features. One was that we embraced theory and practice as going hand in hand, and we intersperse 8 4-month academic terms with 6 4-month work terms. So once our engineering student has completed his first academic term, he then immediately goes on a 4-month work term, and he's paid for that. And they do quite well. In fact, they earn enough in their work term to pay tuition fee, which is substantial in Canada, although not out of reach, plus room and board. And so our students finance their education just that way. The other thing that was unique about our university, and we've kept this, and we would be different than 99% of the universities in North America, is our intellectual property policy is creator owns. We don't own the brains of our professors. Anything that they invent belongs to them. And you say, well, that's counterintuitive. In fact, the American legislation is the Bayh-Dole Act, which requires that if any investment is made by the federal government of the United States in university research, proceeds from that must belong to the university. Now, most universities do some sharing arrangement with their professors so that there's a participate in the bargain. But we felt at Waterloo from the very beginning that the business of technology transfer and that ecology of entrepreneurialism and commercialization or monetizing of innovation was so complicated and so complex that you did not need another ownership player in it attempting to extract a piece of rent from it. But you needed a player that worked very hard at being a marriage broker. And so the focus of the university is on developing the marriages and encouraging our professors to be good professors, to be good teachers and students, but for the most part, not try to be business people, but to develop the capacity to associate with people who are good business people, who have good trust relationships, and make those marriages work. And sometimes to convince our academic colleagues that it's better to have 20% of something than it is to have 80% of nothing, or very little. BlackBerry sent me down this track. BlackBerry RIM, Research and Mission, Research and Motion started at the University of Waterloo because Mike Lazaridis, the founder, was a 4th-year electrical engineering student, and like many of the co-op students, started a company during his co-op term. John Baker over here, John's company is Desire to Learn, e-learning. He had his company going before he graduated. I used to say that John had at least 10 people employed by the time he graduated, and he's corrected me once. He said, no, he said, We only had two, and it was me and my sister, and neither of us were paid. But John hasn't done too badly. In a decade or so, he's built up an 800-person, 800 and counting, John, and is located in one of the incubators in Waterloo region, the old Lang tanning factory. It was the largest tannery in the British Empire, maybe the largest tannery in the world, John. And like so much of the old industry in Waterloo, manufacturing headquarters, disappeared 30 or 40 years ago, and what's replaced it is brain. There's another one of these on the site of a former whiskey distiller, and with a think tank there. And I said we've gone from grain to brain, and that's a pretty good progression of what you do in putting ideas to work. Mike Lazaridis started BlackBerry and has drawn enormously from the co-op program at the University of Waterloo, and drawn enormously from this wonderful, fertile relationship between an institution of learning and ideas and a place where they're applied, and understands more than anyone I know, I think, that technology transfer is a two-way street. It's a back and forth process, not linear from fundamental to experimental to pilot to commercial application, and there it ends. It's back and forth in very busy ways, and that's the kind of environment that we've attempted to create at that university to provide a climate or an ecology for innovation. And as a nation, Canada is also committed to fostering global success in innovation, and we realize that innovation works best when you project it to the entire world as your field of operation, and where you collaborate with other people who look at things from a little different angle. And you put those two angles together, you get some very attractive triangulation. Our great High Commissioner, Stuart Beck, could tell you more about the Startup Visa Program, which we will commence within a matter of weeks, Stuart? Started. And under that program, what we want to do is to encourage young Indian entrepreneurs to bring their cutting-edge products, processes, technologies, and services to be developed and marketed in Canada by having an incubation startup opportunity, then return, and with any luck, not only will that startup flourish, but it will flourish to create jobs and prosperity in both countries and around the world. We're also looking at additional ways to support Canadian entrepreneurs and companies here in India. And I could go on at length, but I won't. Peter has given you some examples of specific milestones that we've observed just in the last week. Canadians and Indians alike will benefit from stronger entrepreneurial ties. And that's so important because we all have a responsibility to ensure that our fellow citizens are able to thrive and to prosper according to their hopes and dreams. And so let me come back to what I said at the outset, the journey I embarked upon a little over 3 years as Governor General of Canada, and that was to help Canadians build a smarter, more caring Canada, and do that by engaging other like-minded partners like India in that very same objective. So let me congratulate you on this wonderfully successful event, a kind of new high watermark, Peter, as you've indicated to us from 12, 13 years ago when you were here, and on all you've achieved to date, and to say the best is yet to come. So accept my very best wishes for your continued success. Thank you, merci.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Please remain seated as Your Excellency is escorted to the adjoining room, and thereafter we will be able to meet and greet with His Excellency.